Did Paul encourage Christians to celebrate Passover? Well, for most of the past 2,000 years, this question has been largely irrelevant. Within a few hundred years of Jesus and Paul, very few Christian groups maintained a connection to Passover. But what would it have been like for the Christ-following communities that Paul actually visited and wrote to? Would they have celebrated Passover? And would Paul support them doing so? Well, to answer these questions, let's go back to Paul's time. So, in Paul's day, there was not yet a separate religion called Christianity. And in the first and second generation of Christ followers, the communities we now refer to as churches were actually synagogue subgroups. In other words, during Paul's time, the Jesus movement was developing within Judaism with a direct connection to the Jewish community. Now, it is very hard for us to imagine what life was like for these early Christians because we have 2,000 years of church history and Christianity as our filters. But let's imagine you were one of Paul's new disciples in, say, Rome or Thessalonica. As a new Christ follower, it's very likely that you would be associating directly with the Jewish community, and you would be following the general rhythms of synagogue life, even as a Gentile. Remember, Paul said that if you are a Christ follower, you can no longer participate in pagan activities, and there was no Christianity yet. So even though you're a Gentile in Rome, as a Christ follower, you are part of a prophetic end times Jewish movement. Therefore, I think Paul's first Gentile Christians participated in many Jewish practices, including Passover. And there's evidence in the New Testament that Paul encouraged this. In 1 Corinthians 5, verses 7 and 8, Paul says, "Christ, our Passover, has been sacrificed. Therefore, let us celebrate the feast." So that statement suggests that Paul's non-Jewish audience in Corinth not only understood Passover concepts, but also actively participated in celebrating the holiday itself. And while Paul doesn't spell out what Christians celebrating Passover looked like, he does welcome it. So what would Paul think about Christians celebrating Passover today? Well, as I noted, not long after Paul, Christians began to distance themselves from Passover. But in recent times, many Christians have been reconnecting with this key biblical holiday. Passover is a Jewish story of Jewish redemption, but one of Paul's central points was that Gentile Christ followers are adopted members of God's family with an essential connection to the stories and holidays of the Jewish people. So I think Paul would welcome modern Christians reconnecting with Passover, but I'm also confident that Paul would want that to be approached respectfully with sensitivity to how Jews have observed this festival for thousands of years. Hey, if you'd like to learn more about Paul and his Jewish and Greco-Roman context, check out my book, The Weird Apostle. You can find it on Amazon, and don't miss out on any of my new content by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening.